Welcome to our coverage of the FIA GT Championship Round 3 of the series. It's at Silverstone, and the British race is also the Centenary Tourist Trophy. First raced in 1905. It's one of Britain's, indeed the world's, oldest motorsporting trophies. And huge crowds meeting the stars and the cars in Leicester Square in London during the week, and then coming out to sunny, hot Silverstone to see the cars in action this Sunday. This is Andrea Bertolini, the Maserati factory test driver. Races with Carl Wendlinger in one of the new MC12s in the series, one of the two JMB racing cars sponsored by Red Bull. And the development driver, starting last time out at Manicourt, second on the grid, taking the lead early on. Lost the lead during the pit stops, but the car was able to pass many cars to work its way back up the order, including the number 6 Chevy Corvette here. But in the final stint, Andrea Bertolini driving again, 7 laps from home. Momentary lack of traction and concentration, perhaps nearly hit a slower car at the hairpin, went into the gravel but recovered, held his lead and took the checkered flag, his third win in the car. Andrea Bertolini saying that was certainly one of the most difficult stints of my career. I had a problem with grip at the front end of the car, and in a sense I was not able even to think about the finish line. With 7 laps to go, went off, and it was such a long 7 laps, much longer than any other I've ever had because of that problem going off into the gravel. But in the end, he managed to hold on and took the win. It's his third win with the car, Maserati's third win. He's won twice with Mika Salo in the factory cars last season. So in fact, he has been in every Maserati that has won in the FIA series.
The Manicourt was very positive for us, so we are quite confident also to have a good performance here in Silverstone. Of course, we have more weight now, and it's never easy to find a good setup. There's more opposition maybe here in Silverstone because we have the 2 Aston Martins in the field, and it's a new circuit again, a new challenge. So we have to work fast and clever, and then I think we are possible to have a good car again.
Wendlinger and Bertolini second in the championship, just 2 points behind Maserati drivers Bartels and Schneider, who lead the series. So the Aston Martins, fastest cars in qualifying, but they're not registered for the championship, so they won't be taking championship points, even if they win the race. And that means that the door is really open for the Maseratis that line up behind the sleek green racing machines from Great Britain. Bertolini looking happy as teammate Carl Wendlinger sits in the stewing sunshine on the grid, ready for the start of the Tourist Trophy. And it's Andrea Bertolini who'll take us round the circuit.
Buongiorno, sono Andrea Bertolini. Abbiamo vinto a Manicourt l'ultimo appuntamento. Questa è la nostra MC.
Obviously, this needs no translation to anybody, but Andrea welcoming you to the car that won last time out at Manicourt, the third win for Maserati, and that interesting little footnote that he has been in every Maserati that's won in this new sports car iteration. So let's have a look around the circuit. 6th gear as you come across the start-finish line, rushing all the way up from the Luffield corner down into 4th gear. This is Copse corner, very tight apex and a long wide exit. Then it picks up into 5th gear and just snatching 6th as they run through Maggots, and then hard braking down towards Beckett's, down into 3rd gear. Grand Prix circuit turns left, International circuit turns right. Newcomers through the Ireland bends, named after Innes Ireland, the Grand Prix driver of the 60s. Another left-hand kink is going up the gearbox, 4th, 5th, again into 6th, rushing down towards Abbey. And again, like Beckett's, very important braking for the right-hander. Very high curbs indeed, perilously high, very heavily corrugated. Stay away. 2nd gear exit, and all the way up through into Bridge Bend. 4th gear, little breathe of the throttle at the apex of breathe, and then down hard on the brakes. 3rd gear for Priory, down into 2nd after another quick stab on the gas for Brooklands, and then hanging on seemingly forever in 2nd gear, waiting until you line up the wiper with the speaker tower there, and away we go, exiting out over Herbert's Trench, the grass there, and aiming for the inside pit wall, flicking past the barriers. There's the start-finish line. Today, 3-hour race. I hope I'll be able to do what I did in Magny-Cours, he says. Goodbye, good luck, and ciao to all the Italians.
A tutti gli italiani.
Ready for the start of the Centenary Tourist Trophy. Championship being led by Michel Bartels and Timo Scheider's Maserati. Pedro Lamy, with points scored not in the Aston Martin, is in joint third place. But the Vodafone Racing and JMB Racing Maserati teams leading the championship at the moment. The Labra Ferrari team running them close. In the GT2 category, Lieben Rockenfeller, Collard and Sugden with equal points with a win and a second each. And behind them, the chasing pack. Group M team leading the championship. It is the factory Porsche outfit after all. So as the Aston Martins lead them round, ready for the start, then Darren Turner will start the 28 car with the Deglo yellow highlights. Car number 29 will be started by Portuguese Pedro Lamy. His partner, Peter Cox, won the first FIA GT race here in a McLaren GTR. Pedro Lamy will have plenty to say about repeating that here. But Darren Turner and David Brabham, well, Brabham here going for the Tourist Trophy that eluded his father in his long and illustrious career. And the championship leader's car in third place on the grid, the first of the Vodafone Racing Maseratis. And with the Astons not set to score points here, they're not registered for the championship. This is just build-up for Le Mans. Then the points are up for grabs for the regular contenders, the Maseratis, the Ferraris, the Celines, and of course the Corvette. Fourth place on the grid is the Corvette C5R. Anthony Kumpen starting that one. Well, Maserati's thick and fast behind him. He's got three of the four Maseratis behind him, Kumpen, and down towards the back of the grid. Three now of the Mosler MT900Rs, in addition to the Embassy Racing Porsche from Great Britain, from the British GT Championship, making one of its occasional forays. But problems before the start for Graham Nash's quicker Celine, the Paolo Roberti Joel Camathias car, having to start from the pit lane. Jaime Melo in the number 3 car, following his teammate, the number 2 machine. Just keeping those Pirellis nice and warm. Under Bridge Bend, or under the bridge and into Bridge Bend they go. Lots of weaving to try and keep some heat in the tyres. Also on the, well, getting towards ubiquitous Pirelli tyres now, Anthony Kumpen. And a new compound of tyre being tried on the Corvette, which will be raced in the Panos Esperanti, or by the Panos Esperanti at Le Mans. That car also running on the new compound Pirelli tyres that are being run by the Car Sport Corvette this weekend at Silverstone. So the Labra competition Ferrari ahead of the Russian age Ferrari, and the Maseratis stuck in there as well. This is Carl Wendlinger as they come through the infield section here. Priory and then Brooklands, the two left-handers, tight and then tighter again, and then the seemingly never-ending right at Luffield. Not the Grand Prix circuit then, the international circuit, ready for the start of the Centenary Tourist Trophy. The car's in vaguely 2x2 formation. That'll do for Eduardo Freitas, getting ready to flag them away. Red light is on, but it's a good square start. They get the green. Darren Turner goes middle for diddle, and going across immediately to the left-hand side is Fabio Babini. Little check there from the second of the Aston Martins. And that means that Pedro Lamy, getting on the brakes instead of staying on the throttle on the way down to Cox for the first time, has dropped down into third, into fourth position. He's been jumped by Fabrizio Golin in the Ferrari. The red and white machine, the Corvette, and the Russian age Ferrari right behind. And then 3 Maseratis, the 2 Red Bull cars, not impressive in qualifying. And behind them, the 2 GPC GS Ferrari 575 Maranellos. So pro-drive cars, or pro-drive built cars, filling 3 of the top 4 places, make that 3 of the top 5 or 4 of the top 6, because of course the Russian age car is a pro-drive built 550 Maranello as well. So 1 Maserati, 1 Corvette, interrupting the Banbury outfits domination of the lead on this opening lap. But look at Bouchou in the Russian age Ferrari having a snap at Pedro Lamy, which, if you like, is the pro-drive sports car Mark II. The Aston Martin Mark I was the Ferrari, everything that's been learned in 4 years of racing, that V12 engine car has gone into the new V12 engine car. End of lap 1, it's Darren Turner by about 3/4 of a second from the Maserati, and Babini behind him, battle on for 3rd place. Fabrizio Golin under pressure from Anthony Compan. Good inside move going into Copse on lap 2. There's cojones for you, and Pedro Lamy having a look with that gaping orange codfish mouth. The Aston Martin slips by the Ferrari, unsettled there. Golin offline, going into the left-hander at Maggots and paying the penalty for it. He's got Christophe Bouchou right behind, and the Corvette and the Aston are now gone. Here comes Bouchou. Bouchou's looking to go around the outside because Golin's got the inside line into Abbey, and you have to be very careful of these curbs here. They do a lot of damage to the car. Oh, look, somebody's hit one there, the first of the Maseratis, binging a bit of its under tray off on those curves. They are, they feel like they're 1.5 feet high. I guess they're about 6 inches high. They are heavily corrugated to withstand the abuse that cars give them, and you don't go over them willingly. Through the infield section then. And Darren Turner with his head down and charging at the head of the field. One Maserati going with him. Well, Silverstone, famous in sports car circles for its hares, the little floppy-eared devils that leap around all over the place. And of course in sports car racing, when Aston were last racing, or were most famously racing in the 50s and 60s, tortoise and hare tactics were very familiar to try and break the fragile cars of the rivals with your hare and allow your tortoise to win. Now let's have a look as Darren Turner takes the middle ground. Babini in the Maserati looking at the inside line to Copse, then suddenly thinks, actually that's a really daft idea, I'll go outside. And Pedro Lamy, having to swerve and got onto the brake pedal momentarily to steady the car, lost a couple of positions. Right behind in the GPC Ferrari, there's the team car right in front, everybody trail braking into the corner, the 2 Maserati side by side, the 2 Ferraris side by side from the onboard shot of Jaime Melo. Very busy run up into Copse. Field starting to spread out in the opening couple of laps, and they'd better make the most of it because this is not the Grand Prix circuit. It's not a 2.5 mile track, it's considerably shorter than that, and the cars will soon be into the GT2 and G2 category cars, the slower 2 classes in this field. Corvette in 3rd, and again looking strong. Anthony Compan having a good opening stint here as well. Ballsy move to take 3rd place, and here's a replay of it. Great timing there. Welcome back live to Silverstone. The Centenary Tourist Trophy is underway. Race 3 in the FIA GT Championship, being led by Aston Martin, a company that has a proud racing heritage in sports cars and indeed in the Tourist Trophy. Darren Turner doing the opening stint in the number 28 car that leads this race. Fabio Babini in car number 10 started on row 2 of the grid, 3rd fastest in qualifying. He's in one of the green and black, or turquoise and black, Maserati MC12s, and this is the view from his teammate. The sister car has got the Russian Age Racing Ferrari 550 of Christophe Bouchou in front of it. Timo Scheider has got 2 further Maseratis right up his exhaust pipes. And look, the older Ferrari, the 550 Maranello, trying to put the moves in on Fabrizio Golin's 575 Maranello. Christophe Bouchou not quite as happy with the car as he has been in the opening couple of races of the season, the Russian Age car, but he has really got the bit between his teeth. He's got nothing to lose and a real point to prove in this car, that he is worthy of a top flight drive in anybody's team. I don't think there's any doubting his calibre. Now there you can see the 3 Maseratis running nose to tail, and the Red Bull cars, Carl Wendlinger and Philipp Peter driving them 15 and 16 respectively. At the moment, the Maseratis, the only one in any decent position is the one in 2nd place, Fabio Babini, and there he is. No, that's not him, that is the other car. In fact, there are the other 3 Maseratis. Babini in the number 10 car, who made a very aggressive move indeed on Pedro Lamy's 2nd qualified Aston Martin, and forced Lamy to get on the brakes on the run-up to the 1st corner from the rolling start. Doesn't seem to have incurred a penalty for that, so clearly he didn't make the full passing manoeuvre before they got across the line. On board right behind Timo Scheider with another of our Maserati camera cars, and this is Carl Wendlinger, car number 15, the first of the two Red Bull Racing cars. Philip Pater dropping back a little just to, well, maybe give Wendlinger room for manoeuvre, but also to see how the battle is transpiring. They can't both overtake the Timo Scheider car in one go. So I think Philip Pater sensibly, David Leslie, probably letting Carl Wendlinger get on with it, and if Carl can open the door, then I imagine there'll be two Red Bull cars jamming their foot in as they come across the line. The leader with the yellow flashes already in slower traffic. David, they've already put a lap on the Lister.
And we can't quite work out why that happened, because the Lister, certainly in the warm-up, was going extremely well this morning. In fact, it was right up there. It was in 6th fastest at a 1:19, but for some unknown reason so far, his fastest lap in the actual race is a 1:23, some 4 seconds slower than it was in the morning warm-up. So obviously I think there's a bit of a problem somewhere with the Lister. For it to be lapped this early, then there's certainly something wrong with it somewhere, because they haven't got the rest of the Porsches and things, which they'll be doing just in a minute or two. The cars will be, but it is a real battle out here, right from the front all the way down to about 11th place. All these cars, these are big cars with very good drivers in them, and they're all out there trying to get the best out of their cars. And even with Mr. Bouchou, who we know, a very experienced driver, he's up there in 6th place in car 17, the Ferrari 550 at the moment. And it's really very close indeed. You can see now the lead Aston with the Maserati right behind, and the Corvette now has caught up into 3rd place. You can see this Maserati is really going to hound the back of this Aston Martin for the rest of this race. We've seen how quick the Maseratis were when they were at Magny-Cours at the last race meeting. They really were the class of the field. They were so much faster than everything else out there. And we thought when we came here this weekend that would probably be the same again, but Aston Martin did throw a bit of a spanner in the work by being quickest in qualifying. They were quickest in practice as well beforehand, and for them to come up and take the whole front row with both cars, and that really was something good for the championship. And the first time the Aston Martin has turned up in the championship this year, obviously their big goal is to do Le Mans 24 hours, and they're using this as a bit of a test session. They've already had one major race which managed to win at Sebring, 10-hour race there, and now they've come here for this 3-hour race here. And you can see just how close it is, and that Maserati keeps sticking its nose in any which way it can to try and find a way past. And you know, these drivers, very experienced indeed. They know exactly what they're doing with these cars, and no quarter will be given whatsoever. And I think that Darren Turner will be watching both ends of the car, looking out to the windscreen to see where he's catching and passing with the slower traffic, and keeping an eye on those very good wing mirrors they have there on that Aston Martin. And I looked at them yesterday when we were in the pits, and a good size they are too, to be able to see exactly what's happening behind you.
Well, also a sophisticated piece of kit, carbon fibre piece that's not an aerodynamic wing mirror that gives you a good view behind. It also gives you a cool, well, relatively cool, well, not relatively cool at all actually, some airflow into the cockpit, because there is a hole in the front of it, and down the stalk of the wing mirror is the cooling tube, so air goes in through the wing mirrors into the driver's cockpit. But again, Darren was saying yesterday, this is, if you like, this is the ProDrive sports car racer Evo 2. Evo 1 was the 550 Maranello. Everything they learned in that, they've incorporated into this car. Again, it's a front engine, big front engine, rear-wheel drive sports car. The big difference here is that the DBR9 as a road car has got an aluminium chassis, whereas it was a steel chassis monocoque in the Ferrari, so very different there. And one of the things Darren said that they have found out is that it doesn't radiate away the heat in the way that the steel chassis do, so it's even hotter than the Ferrari, and as a legacy of that, they have had to work, particularly after Sebring, which is always like being in a pressure cooker in terms of heat. They have had to work very hard on the driver cooling, because these things really are, you've got a several hundred kilowatt industrial quality furnace, and the heating pipes running all around the driver. If it's not 200 degrees in there within a couple of laps, then that's because you're parked at the side of the track. It is a very, very brutal environment. It's, I think, David, very hard indeed to overemphasize. It's very hard to even to indicate just how violent these cars are to drive, because they look as though you should be able to drive a car like this for an hour without too many problems. But Darren was saying they put a new seat in this weekend, and he's got really bad backache off it, and they were having to fiddle around with it yesterday to change his lumbar support in it. because after 45 or 50 minutes, it's really extremely painful.
You have to be very comfortable in these cars. Yes, if you buy the road car and you drive off down the autobahn or the motorway, wherever it is, you're sitting in great comfort, you've got the air conditioning on, and it's fantastic to drive, and these cars really are as a road car. But for racing, everything is stripped out and everything comes down to the bare minimum, and as you say, it's very brutal. You've got big tyres, you've got a lot of grip, and you have to be able to make the most of exactly what is happening out there. And as Darren said, he needs to be comfortable. Now, for some unknown reason, he wasn't comfortable in the car. The seat comes, it's a big carbon fibre seat, it has a covering on it when it arrives. Now, because you've got different drivers getting in and out of cars, one seat isn't always necessarily the exact shape of the driver's back, or it fits the driver as they get into the car. So what they have a little insert that goes into that seat, usually made with what we call a two-pack foam. It's an expanding foam that you get in, you pour it down your back, up it comes your back, and it shapes to your exact shape of your back, basically. So you have a seat moulded to your body, and that's what they have. And it's that moulding that they were playing with Darren yesterday, just to get him to make him absolutely comfortable, because you're in here for such a long time, in great heat, working very, very hard.
15 minutes into the 3-hour 100th Tourist Trophy, in fact the Centenary Tourist Trophy, one of motor racing's most prestigious prizes, and a lead battle featuring not only 3 different manufacturers but 3 different nations, if you like, all of whom have got rich sports car heritage. Leaders Aston Martin and the AMR1 that David Leslie used to race in the 80s, the DBR1s that they raced in the late 50s and early 60s, and now the DBR9 continuing Aston Martin's proud heritage of sports car racing. In second place, Maserati, and David, very much in Aston's heyday. That was Maserati's heyday as well, the 50s and the 60s. As they were then, so are they now. Big, front-engined, brutal sports cars, rear-wheel drive, a lot of power, a lot of driver input required. And in third place, the Chevy Corvette. I mean, America's sports car, again, with a very proud racing tradition, and a very similar car, but with a big engine and rear-wheel drive. But 3 more different kind of cars you can barely imagine finding.
You're right. When you look at them up close, you look at them in the pit lane as we did yesterday, very, very different indeed. The Corvette really is an American car. It is very big, it is very agricultural, to say the least, when you look at it, and it sounds with that big V8, a real thumping engine, whereas both Maserati and the Aston Martin have got V12s in there. They're much more of a singing engine. They sort of glide through the air. The noise that comes out is very pleasing to the ear compared to the thumping engine of the big V8 that comes out of the Corvette. Some people love them. Martin, I know, he's shaking his head because he loves the sound of the Corvette V8, and I have to say it is very good. I've got nothing against it, but it is just that bit different to the V12, the smoothness, the singing, the high-pitched whine of the V12 compared to the V8. Here we see they've been desperately trying to get past that Lister. The Lister, we said, had been slow for some reason, and it was a lap down. We couldn't understand why. It now looks as though it's running at a proper pace because it's running with the rest of the cars, and they've been trying for quite some time now to get past. And we've seen the Ferrari there took a dive down the inside, desperate to get past Justin Keen in that Lister, but unfortunately he's now held back Christophe Bouchou in the other Ferrari, in that blue one with the red top on it. And Christophe will not be happy that he's sitting there behind. Neither will the 2 other Maseratis, the Vagabond Maserati and the Red Bull Maserati, sitting there behind the Lister. So this has obviously had a problem at the beginning for some reason, which has slowed it up. Now it's got going. It's sort of in the pack, basically, and holding the pack up. And these guys are going to be chomping at the bit, trying to get past it. But there's nothing much they can do. They need to do it cleanly. It's a 3-hour race. There's no point in bashing into somebody, because if you bash into somebody now, then you're going to have a lot of problem afterwards.
Oh, Kumpen all over the curbs. That is an enormously high curb on the exit of Abbey. And look at Darren Turner flashing the headlights. He's coming up behind 2 more different cars.
It was a TVR and a Mosler.
One of the Moslers, yeah. So again, great variety. And you know, this takes me back, David, to when I first really started watching motor racing here at Silverstone, standing on the bank by the then Daily Express Bridge for a Silverstone 6-hour race, and just listening to all the different engines, all the different sights and sounds, the different cars. One of the great features of endurance racing we're seeing here again. Good close racing between all these different looking and sounding cars. V12 in the lead Aston Martin at the front, V12 in the Maserati behind the driver, V8 in the Corvette at the front, with a 4-cylinder noise coming out one side, a 4-cylinder noise coming out the other side. Two very different sounding V12s. Again, the Lister, another V12, another completely different sounding V12, much more of a sort of big, heavy-throated V8 kind of V12 sound, if you like. And then, you know, all of the smaller capacity cars and everything, you get the flat 6 Barker, the Porsches, and you get the Mosler with its Corvette V8 engine mounted behind the driver. I mean, there's huge variety, and there's always something going on. It's just so enthralling to sit and watch. And I have to say, this year been great to be able to cover these races in real depth again live on Eurosport 2. Monza, 3 hours just passed in a heartbeat for me. From the moment they dropped the flag to the moment that they picked up the checker, it was non-stop action, and there's every indication it's going to continue this way again. At Monza, the Corvette was right in the frame, top 4 into the last 5 or 6 laps of the race before it had a small underbonnet fire. And here again at Silverstone, it is a proper 2005 spec factory-built Pratt & Miller Corvette, the same as the GM team raced in America last year, and it is showing that it has got the pace to run at the front, and it's just fantastic. Look at that, 1 second after 15 laps and the better part of 20 minutes between these cars. You know, if you had any 20-minute race, a touring car race that had 3 cars covered by a second, you'd say it was a great race. You know, we've still got another 2 hours and 20 minutes to go, and I don't think there's going to be too much bigger a gap at the head of the field by the end of that.
I know certainly the races we've seen so far, they've been very, very close together. Endurance racing quite often is very spread out and quite hard to watch and understand who's in what position, but here we have all the first 3 cars nose to tail, and they've been nose to tail since they started. Basically, after the first lap it took the Corvette a couple of seconds to get past, and once it did, on 23rd place, it caught the first 2, and catching them is quite easy. Getting past somebody is that much more difficult, as this group here found out when they were trying to get past the Lister. And eventually now I see that they've all managed to do that, and once they're past, they're actually pulling away. So yes, they are quicker than what the Lister was, but it took them a number of laps to be able to get past that car. So if you've got someone who's slower in front of you, it's not a case of simply arriving behind them and driving past them quickly. If they're just that little bit slower than you, then it's quite a big, difficult job to get past. Yes, when you're lapping the back markers like the leaders are at the moment, they come up on them very, very quickly. We've seen Darren Turner earlier on flashing the lights to let the guys know in front that he's arriving. This is the leader now arriving behind them, and he wants to get past straight away. There's no, I will wait until I get round this corner. If he waits until he gets round the corner, then that Maserati behind him won't wait. He'll be round past both of them before he can sort of think about it. So you have to make a decision to go very quickly to get past people, and it's that makes some of this endurance racing so exciting, is that will the lead drivers make all the right decisions throughout a whole 3-hour race? Will every decision they make in order which side to pass one of the slow cars, can I do it on the inside, can I do it on the outside, will the guy hold his line, the slow guy, in order to get past nice and cleanly, make no mistakes and come out to the other side?
Now, we always talk about sports car racing, particularly in this sort of idiom, as being endurance racing, which it is. It's endurance for the car. I've read many times Sterling Moss saying about his years as a sports car driver and as a Grand Prix driver, and in fact in his era, drivers just drove. Whatever there was, they drove them, and quite frankly, you sort of went everywhere and drove everything the same weekend if you possibly could, because that's what drivers did. But he always said he never really liked Le Mans, and the reason he never really liked Le Mans has now vanished from sports car racing. He never really liked Le Mans because it was all about preserving the car. It wasn't about driving as fast as you could, it was about driving for 24 hours. Now though, David, even Le Mans is about driving as fast as you can every single second of the 24 hours, because if you slow for a moment, somebody will be past you. I was just thinking about that, watching Darren Turner there, coming into Maggots and through the island curves, leaning on the Aston Martin so hard, really, really grinding every ounce out of it, like it is a 10-lap race, and yet it's a 3-hour enduro. Eurosport live at Silverstone, the Centenary Tourist Trophy, round 3 of the 2005 FIA GT Series. This is the Ferrari battle in the top 6. Christophe Bouchou chasing Fabrizio Golin. Bouchou in the Russian-aged racing Ferrari, the 550 Maranello built up the road in Oxfordshire, in Banbury by ProDrive. He's chasing the 575. That is the factory-approved Ferrari for customers of the Scuderia. And right behind them, the onboard camera shot is with Timo Scheider's Maserati. Now here we see the Johnny Kane TVR chasing the Justin Keen Lister Storm. Justin just nipping it in there at Brooklands, taking one of those corner markers away. And here is our lead battle. 25 minutes now into this 3-hour Centenary Tourist Trophy. And here is the battle for second place. Just in front, you'll see the Aston Martin, the Darren Turner, our race leader. Anthony Kumpen in third in the Car Sport GLPK Corvette C5R, and in between them the Maserati MC12 of Fabio Barbini. These cars qualified first, third and fourth on the grid. Second fastest qualifier Pedro Lamy got a bit squeezed at the start there. He had to brake going down into Copse for the first time, lost ground, and he is still at the back of that group. Here is our G2 leader, the Spirit Kia sponsored Mosler MT900R, Sean Balfe and Jamie Derbyshire. And here is our battle in the lead group, the GT1 class. Christophe Bouchou there in the blue, red and whites, the colours of course of the Russian Federation. Ferrari chasing I'm going to say for Fabio Barbini, of course, Fabrizio Golin in the number 11 car. So they are 5th and 6th. Timo Scheider leading a 3 Maserati train, 7th, 8th and 9th. Behind them is Andrea Piccini in 10th place in car number 2, which is the Jean Deli Delatraz co-driven GPC Ferrari as well. And that car, the sister car of Jaime Melo's car that we saw earlier on, he's showing with Jean-Philippe Belloc. But David, John,
he was just talking about Fabrizio Golin there, who's in that car too in front of this, the red Ferrari. And that's fine. He managed to win an event last night. At 6 o'clock last night, there was a challenge, what we call the GTR challenge. This is a game for your computer PCs that you can play, which is all about this, the FIA GT Championship. And there was a challenge last night at 6 o'clock for the drivers and the press. You had to, one driver and one member of the press somewhere along the line, and you had to have a race with 12 of you in there. There's 12 sets of computers with all the screens and everything else racing against each other. He managed to win that, and with him was Stephen Taylor from MST Time, and the people that supply all the lap times.
Oh, that's happy then. Timing and scoring won the race. I wonder how they managed that. Excellent.
So that's Fabrizio has had a good start to the weekend, and here he is. We can see him with Christophe Bouchou right behind him at this moment in time. So there he is in the red Ferrari, the 575. Being chased by the 550 behind.
Now, did the drivers get to race their own cars, or did they have to race somebody else's? That would have been fun if he'd won it in a Maserati. Yeah, GTR, also the title sponsor, of course, of the FIA GT Championship this year. We've seen the Moser leading the G2 category. This is our GT2 category, one of the 2 Gruppa M cars. Mike Rockenfeller, the man who put the 66 car on pole in the category, is leading, and the sister Gruppa M car is the Tim Sugden car. That is 88, identical in almost every respect. They still haven't put the whacking great NASCAR numbers on the roof that they promised me. There it is, between first and second place cars on the road. The Aston Martin is the leader, the Maserati there, the turquoise and black car, again being monstered by Anthony Kumpen. David, we said it before and we'll say it again, back markers or slower cars, you can hardly call the GT2 leaders back markers in any field. Slower cars offer the car behind an opportunity to take advantage of any accidental or problems or hold-ups that the car in front of them might suffer. And you saw there Kumpen, as they closed down on the Ferrari, suddenly getting even more onto the tail of the Maserati, just in case there was half an inkling of a chance to get through.
Well, you see, when they came down to the Abbey corner, the Maserati looked as though it was going to go down the inside of the Porsche and couldn't quite make it. So he had to back out, and when he came out of the corner, he couldn't get past the Porsche before he got to the next corner. So all of a sudden, that lunge that he made actually slowed him up quite a bit. And there was this car, the Corvette, with Anthony Kumpen in, just waiting to try and take that position away from him. And it's while they're going through all the traffic that the biggest or the best overtaking opportunities sometimes arise, because if the car in front, like this Maserati, Barbini's Maserati there, if he decides to go the wrong way and has to hit the brakes, or decides not to do that, and Kumpen in the yellow Corvette behind decides to go the other way, all of a sudden you could have an overtaking manoeuvre and a change for second place on the race. So that's why Kumpen will be sticking to the back of this Barbini's Maserati to try and take any advantage that he can as he's going around this circuit of 3.6 kilometres at the international circuit here at Silverstone.
Not that he wouldn't be anyway, but yes, absolutely, he will be doubly keen going past the GT2 leader. Rocky staying out of the way, drops back onto the racing line. Ooh, and Anthony is really asking an awful lot there of the Porsche. That is a very tough place to try and pass on the inside, and he had to hit him to get through. Now Kumpen clearly with the bit very firmly between his teeth. He's got the rhythm going. He doesn't want to get held up, because if he drops a second back there in Brooklands behind the Porsche, then the gap has gone to the Maserati and he'll be on his own. And at the moment he's in the tow. If he got held up by the Porsche, then more dramatically he wouldn't have. But that's a bad ask, because Rocky had to go for the apex. He was on the racing line, and the Corvette really had no right to be inside there. You see that Rockenfeller is absolutely on the racing line, apexing exactly where he should have been, and the Corvette was trying to squeeze between him and the curbs. Now, the Corvette, by anybody's judgment, is not a narrow car.
No, it's not by anybody's stretch of imagination. We know the Maserati is a wide car, but so is the Corvette. They're the widest cars out here on the circuit, basically. And you're trying to squeeze that in through there. What we see now is the Pedro Lamy Aston Martin. Now, at the beginning, he took a little bit of a shake at the beginning off the start line, and he dropped back a little bit. But he's been a few seconds behind, but he's now picking the pace up. He's now starting to catch the first three cars. So pretty shortly, instead of having the three cars at the front with an Aston and Maserati and the Corvette, you're now getting fairly shortly, I think, see Pedro Lamy with the other Aston up into fourth place, in a very close fourth place, rather than the sort of distant fourth place it has been for the last sort of 10-15 minutes.
He's not like lapping quite as fast as Darren Turner, actually, either on the last lap when Darren did an 18.9 and Pedro did a 19.4, and their fastest laps as well are about 4/10 apart as well. So Pedro is just gradually losing a little bit of ground, inch by inch, lap by lap. But you're right, he is definitely closing on the battle for second. And in comes Johnny Kane in a badly damaged TBR, left rear puncture. And it looks like he's got a little bit of nose damage as well. Johnny Kane in what is the sole Team LNT TBR 400 this weekend. Johnny Kane sharing with Lawrence Tomlinson. So the sister car is not out here this weekend. And that may be a legacy of a British GT race. I'm not quite sure why that's not here. A couple of extra runners from the British Championship. We mentioned the Embassy Racing Porsche. I haven't seen it yet. Ben Collins and Neil Cunningham, ex-British racers. Of course, they've been in the FIA Championship this season as well. And also Sieber Automotive are running a car here. Sieber, who have done a lot of British racing in GTs and particularly in the Caterhams, running a Porsche for Steven Eriksson from Sweden, for Lars and Erik Nielsen of Denmark, and Pierre Eret, who the German driver who's done a lot of racing with the Racers Group in the American Le Mans series, so he knows the car inside out, knows what to expect. And Certec Motorsport with their Ferrari 360, two Ferrari 360s and a TBR in the field in GT2, taking the battle to the Porsches. Certec running the car for Steven Eriksson and for Joe Macari. So the other Ferrari is for Gabio Rosa and Luca Drudi, the GPC Competizione car. So those guys also racing the Porsches, but certainly Porsche the upper hand with the two Grupper M cars and the Embassy Racing car, first, second and third at the moment. But right behind them is Sean Balfe in the Sean Balfe, Jamie Derbyshire, Mosler MT900. So although it's in a slightly different class, their target very definitely for the season is to run with the front runners in GT2.
Yes, I spoke to Balfe yesterday when we were here in practice, and they were saying that, you know, their target all year has to be to run with the Porsches, preferably with the Group M Porsches right at the front of that field. But they've been feeling the heat at the moment. They've been certainly up there at qualifying, not quite on the pace when it comes to the race, but they've had one or two problems, and they had a gear lever problem where the cable that goes from the gear lever to the gearbox actually melted at the last race meeting at Magny-Cours, and that's what put them out of there. So they actually haven't finished any of the races yet in that Mosler, but looking forward to try and put that right this weekend here at their home track at Silverstone.
Just looking there at Michel Bartels, the man, of course, who's behind the Vitaphone racing team. He brought the sponsor and himself together with Uwe Artsen last year and the Conrad Racing Celine, and produced some great results. And clearly Vitaphone very, very fired up. Really impressed actually with the way they've completely embraced this as a promotional tool, and they really make good use of it. in the paddock and around the racetracks as well. Really loads of merchandising and loads of advertising going on around the cars. And of course, with the Maseratis this year, a two-car team, big expansion for them. But David, something we were talking about yesterday after practice that probably wouldn't happen if you were running a pro-drive Ferrari or now a pro-drive Aston Martin as a customer. Bartels is starting already to fiddle with the setup of the Maserati, clearly feeling that Michael Schumacher, hundreds of hours around the Maranello test track, and the best engineers that Ferrari and Maserati can produce don't quite know as much about setting up the car as he does. They're going their own way on suspension. They're using their own suspension systems now on the Vitaphone racing car, and we were saying, is it a great idea 2 races into the championship with these still relatively new cars on tracks they've never been to before to start meandering away from what the Ferrari testers seem to think is a pretty good handling car already?
When you have a race car, you always want to make it better. You always want to improve all the time. That's why people go testing. We were talking earlier on this morning, we were watching the warm-up for the World Touring cars, that you're always trying to develop the car, you're always trying to make the car better. Now these guys have been and bought these cars from a very good source. The cars were raced by Maserati last year, and they were very good. They did win races, and they did win races comfortably. And we've seen how they can win races since the beginning of this year as well. And for some unknown reason, as you said, they've started to fiddle with the car. They decided to make lots of changes in order to work out, try and make it go faster. But, as you said, when you've got, the leading engineers from Maserati and Ferrari who designed and built this car, you wonder what they're going to do to try and make it better. And in actual fact, we believe that during time they will actually end up making it slightly slower.
Our race leader in the Centenary Tourist Trophy is an Aston Martin. The sister car in 4th place, this is Pedro Lamy. We are now some 40 minutes into the race, and the leader's covered by just 3 seconds. Darren Turner leads for Aston Martin, Fabio Bobini second for Maserati, Anthony Kumper third for Chevrolet, and in 4th place Pedro Lamy. 5th place now Christophe Bouchou, the Russian-aged racing Ferrari, has got past Fabrizio Golin. 6th, this is the battle for 7th. Number 9 Timo Scheider, number 15 Karl Wendlinger. We're on board with the rangy Austrian. Scheider in front of him, another Maserati MC12. They go inside the 3rd of the Mosler. This is an absolutely brand new car this season. Paul White, Dad Barry and Gavin Kershaw are driving this, other way around. Dad Paul, son Barry and Gavin Kershaw. Barry White, don't go changing Barry White. The Lotus Elise driving Barry White, who shared the Lotus Elise with Gavin Kershaw in the last couple of seasons in the British GT Championship. So 3 Moslers, Phil Keane and Nigel Taylor driving car number 102, the one that looks like a mid-1980s Gepard, courtesy of its colour scheme, and Sean Balfe, Jamie Derbyshire leading the G2 category. But the change that we didn't see on camera, we're documenting now, is that finally the Russian-aged racing Ferrari of Christophe Bouchou has got ahead of the red and white striped car that you're seeing now, trying to get past the Gruppa M Porsche. And David, very telling that he's no longer in camera shot. Bouchou got by and he is gone.
Yeah, we can see here there's 3 of the 4 cars left. Wendlinger's hit him
on the curbs.
And now we said about trying to overtake people, the back markers. You can see the Vitaphone car took the line to try and get past the back marker, and Wendlinger thought this is his opportunity while overtaking the back marker to get past as well. He went down the inside, ended up on the grass, on the curb on the inside, running into each other. So 2 Maseratis from different teams, the Red Bull car with Wendlinger in it and the Vitaphone car. And here we see it from on board. He's braked to slow down to get past the Porsche. He's taken an opportunity to think, I can do this. Big hit right in the apex of the corner, and slowed him down on the way out. So these 2 cars now have had that touch, and we can only wait and see if any damage has been done, if a puncture comes from it, if the bodywork's rubbing on a tyre or something else like that has gone wrong. But what we started to say before they dived into that corner was about Christophe Bouchou with the Russian age car. We can see those 3 cars there. Now before we could see Golin, then we've seen Bouchou in the blue Russian age car, but that's now gone. It's sort of out of shot. Once he gets past Bouchou, he has accelerated. He's obviously quicker, but just couldn't actually get past Golin all that time. We did say that earlier on, how difficult it was to get past somebody who's just that little bit slower.
A lot of grass in Karl Wendlinger's nose aperture, the cooling for the radiators, front radiators, between the wheels will not be getting the airflow they should do, and although we're not Manicourt temperatures here, it is a warm day, David. I mean, it was cold overnight, it was quite sharp still this morning. Good charge for the normally aspirated engines, getting lots of air into them in the cooler, slightly denser air this morning, and perhaps that's why the morning warm-up time is just a little quicker than most people expected. But grass in the nose of the number 9 car as well, Timo Scheider. I have to say, in that incident, looking again on board with Carl Wendlinger is making a well-telegraphed move down the inside, and Scheider just goes for the apex anyway. The guy who was lucky there was Rockenfeller.
I think
not
he was
to get punted off by one or both of them. He was the lucky guy in the Porsche on the outside.
I think he wasn't so much lucky, and that he's seen what was happening, and you could see he steered the car away from them. He knows, he's leading that race at this moment in time in his class, and he wants to keep that car in one piece and get to the end of this 3 hours. He doesn't want to get involved with these guys. He knows these guys are faster. He knows he's being lapped by them, and when he's seen that happening, he'll be watching his mirrors. He's a very well switched on guy for running in the GT2 category, who gets overtaken on a regular basis by these guys, and when he's seen that coming, he just steered the other way around this corner, basically around this hairpin down at Abbey, in order to keep out of the way and let these guys get on with their argument.
Oh dear, this is the new Maserati, and unfortunately the 104 car has got itself you'd have to say a fairly major overheating problem. It looks like, I would have thought, it's probably blown a hose.
Whatever it is, it's very much overheating. That's the Mosler of the Barry White. As you said, it was a new car. In actual fact, this is the very first race. They've only had the car for about a fortnight, done a little bit of testing, and they've certainly dropped themselves in the deep end by coming to the FIA GT Championship as the first race for a brand new car, and they've been working even on Thursday night. They worked an all-nighter to try and prepare the car ready for this weekend, so it looks like they've got a little bit more work to do before they can get that car to the finish of this race.
Dave Richards never looks like he's having a bad day, does he? But he particularly, it seemed to me, had a bit of a jaunty air and a big smile on his face when we were chatting to him yesterday. Just announced, ProDrive, that Aston Martin Racing, that the first customer cars will be run in the FIA GT Championship by BMS Scuderia Italia. They, of course, the team that took the 550 Maranello Ferraris built by ProDrive to 2 consecutive FIA GT Championships in the last 2 seasons. Teams, manufacturers and drivers' titles all fell to them, so I have to say that is a safe set of hands, and very good that deal's been announced. Dave Richards also saying that close to announcing an official factory blessed team in the American Le Mans Series, and Aston Martin Racing also hope to be partaking in the European Le Mans Series with another partner team. And clearly after Sebring, well, I have to say clearly before Sebring, even the first press shots of the cars, when I downloaded those from press releases, I thought there is going to be a big line of queue knocking on the doors at Banbury saying I'd like one of those please, and their customer run, I think, is selling very nicely indeed. Winning Sebring first time out doesn't harm the prospect of selling Aston Martins in any way, shape or form. The fact that they're being built by ProDrive, certainly no handicap there either. Very successful line of sports car races, I think, being laid up at the moment. And the first ones we anticipate possibly at Spa for the 24 hours, but certainly before the end of the season. The delivery dates originally were due to be towards the end of the season in preparation for racing in 2006. Now the customers just can't wait. Come on, you've got our cheque for the deposit. When can we see the car? You know, we'll take it with the paint wet. We don't mind.
He was saying that the customers are demanding the cars earlier than what they originally planned to deliver them, and he believes that he might be able to bring the delivery date forward a couple of weeks. And in motorsport terms, that is, it's a long time, a couple of weeks in motorsport terms. You can do a lot of testing and developing in that period of time. But obviously, everything's got to be done and sorted. The Le Mans race out of the way before the final specification for the cars are set exactly how they're going to be put together and sold to the customers. So yes, as you said, there was a good line of people waiting to buy these cars, and that line got somewhat longer the minute they managed to win the Sebring race over in America. And I think by what they've done here in the FIA GT Championship, they've brought the car out. It is a proper road car turned into a race car, as opposed to the Maserati, which we in this particular box feel that is a race car turned into a road car the other way around. So for the Aston to go out and be ahead of the car at this moment in time is a fantastic feat for the Aston Martin design team and the ProDrive people who have put the car together and running. And George Howard-Chapel, while he's not the most talkative person in the world, you have to say has done a fantastic job, because he not only has done the work on this, the Aston Martin DBR9, but also on the Ferrari 550 that ProDrive built. And this grid, as you can see, is littered with these Ferrari 550 cars, as is the entry around the world with the cars that they've sold from the ProDrive complex. So you have to say that one day that we'll eventually get George Howard-Chapel to put a smile on his face and appreciate what he's actually managed to do, and hopefully get him to talk a bit more about it.
I think that's unfair. He is quite a communicative chap, actually. You just don't get him quite often enough when at a race circuit without an awful lot of eggs to juggle, so he doesn't often have too much time to chat. But they are at Banbury, they are enormously proud of the success of this car. They were very, very proud of it even before the 550 ever turned a wheel here at Silverstone. In fact, it was at this race 4 or 5 years ago now, maybe, that the 550 was supposed to race, but in fact they didn't get a chance to start because the layout of the gearbox was not the same as in the road car, and the regulations are that it must lie in the same direction. If it's a transverse gear, transaxle in the gear cluster in the road car, must be in the race car as well. And ProDrive had bought an off-the-shelf customer unit, you know, X-Track and all these people that make transaxles. They bought an off-the-shelf unit, thinking that that would be the most sensible way of building a customer car, and then had to go out and have a custom one made with the gear clusters in the right alignment. So that was probably the only glitch I can think of in the entire programme, barring one unfortunate shunt at Le Mans with the cars, but that's racing accident as opposed to anything that they could justifiably be held up to have engineered or not engineered for themselves. And it is, I mean, in everything that ProDrive have done over the years, you think of course, the enormous success of Subaru in the World Rally Championship, entirely engineered by and built by ProDrive, and before that, touring cars, and Dave Richards himself, the former world champion, co-drove Ari Vatanen in Rothmans Escorts, run by David Sutton, to the World Rally Championship. So a man who knows a thing or two about winning, and you'd have to say an awful lot of the position that VAR find themselves in now is probably down to the engineering expertise that was transmogrified onto the team from ProDrive over the preceding 12 to 18 months by Dave Richards and the guys there as well. So they just got enormous provenance in building quick racing cars. This battle continues in the Centenary Tourist Trophy. Ferrari, Maserati, Maserati. This is the squabble over sixth position. Fabrizio Golin in the red and white Ferrari in sixth, Timo Scheider and Carl Wendlinger in the two Maseratis, the Vitaphone racing car and the Red Bull racing car right behind him. But it's Darren Turner that still leads this race. He's led every inch of it since the moment they got the green light, and now after 37 laps and some 49 minutes, they are still leading the Aston Martin team, leading the Maserati in second place and the Corvette in third. And Pedrolami still 5.9 seconds behind the leader, 4 seconds behind third place in the second of the Aston Martins. Not quite able to catch, but the lead quartet certainly leaving the rest of the field behind. And David, from the way that Christophe Bouchou took so long to get past this red and white Ferrari, and then within literally 2 laps completely disappeared from even the longest camera shot, clearly Fabrizio Golin is holding up these two Maseratis, and it must be very frustrating indeed for Scheider and also for Wendlinger behind, that there's little they can do about it. In this race, you can't go into the pits, take fuel, and then come back out and you know, sort of get some fresh air, because there's not much fresh air to be had. But also, you daren't interrupt your fueling strategy, otherwise you'll spend more time in the pits, and you're guaranteed never to win anything if you spend more time in the pits than your rivals.
Endurance racing like this is all about spending the least amount of time in the pits, and a lot of these teams try and work on that basis. How little can they actually spend inside the in the pit area, basically, so they don't want to be coming in for any reason at all unless they have to come in, unless they need fuel. And fuel is very important, and they can do this on 2 stops generally. You can come in, fill the car up and go back out again, and you want the absolute minimum of 2 stops to be able to get through a race. Any more than that, then all of a sudden you are 25-30 seconds at least behind where you actually want to be, So nobody's going to come in and do a splash and dash fuel stop to come back out again. It just simply doesn't work in this type of FIA GT racing. So these guys are out there for the full best part of 1 hour, about 55 minutes before they will come in, and then they'll have their first fuel stop. And it depends what they want to do. Will they change drivers or will they change tyres? They may do both, they may do neither. And but when they come in for the second time, then they've got to make a decision what to do then. So there will be a tyre change at some point during the race, and there will be a driver change at some point during the race. But whether they do it the first session or whether they do it the second one, we're not too sure at this moment in time. And each of the different teams have got different ideas. We're running on different tyres, some on Michelin, some on Pirelli. And I think the Lister is now the only car left on Dunlop's, in actual fact.
That's correct, in the big GT1 category. And certainly from their standpoint of 2 or 3 years ago, certainly Pirelli have made huge inroads, really turned around the performance of their tyres, and have matched anything that anybody can produce. And that's really just a single-minded approach of men like Peter Tyson, who's been right behind the racing programme, really pushing it on. And I was just about to say that the pit window is definitely opening. 2 hours and 8 minutes of the race left, which means we're past the 50-minute mark and approaching the hour. And that means that drivers now need to be suited and booted. You saw Michel Bartels there, getting ready to take over this number 9 car from Timo Scheider. Now, the fact that a driver appears on the pit apron, the fact that tyres appear on the pit apron, does not necessarily mean a whole lot. Chances are, and this is likely to be the way that it is, Michel Bartels will do the middle hour, Timo Scheider will do the final hour, but there can be some trickology going on here. For instance, they want to get ahead of the Babini car, the number 11, not the Babini car, beg your pardon, the Golin car, the number 11 Ferrari. If they see tyres coming out from number 11 Ferrari and the driver coming out from number 11 Ferrari, they may just say, right, we'll just leave Scheider in and just put fuel in and get track position, get ahead of this wretched Ferrari, see if we can't go a bit quicker in the second stint, and then give Michel Bartels the final stint and the fresh tyres to try and improve on that again, because at the moment they are stuck behind the Ferrari and they are going artificially slowly as a result, because the sister car, number 10, its fastest lap 1:17.5, fastest lap of the number 9 car 1:18.2.
Yes, there's a big difference, and as you said, we think it's because it's stuck behind Fabrizio Golin with the red Ferrari there, and it's very difficult and it's very frustrating, as you said, for the drivers to be stuck there. And even Carl Wendlinger, you know, very quick driver. We know how quick he is. We've seen him leading races in the FIA GT Championship before, and then all of a sudden they're stuck away down there, and it's only because they can't overtake. You know, there just isn't the space around here, and the cars are just so closely matched. We said at the very beginning, right, when the race started, how closely matched all these different manufacturers are now in the FIA GT Championship, making it really good racing, really close racing throughout the field, whether it be right at the front for first, second and third, or whether it be down here as we're looking at it now for 6th, 7th and 8th, or even in the GT2 class. There's racing, or very close racing, going on all the way around the circuit. And here we see, I think that looks like the leader, yep, Rockefeller of in the Group M car for the GT2 category, and behind him number 88 Sugden, and he's only 4.75 seconds behind his teammate is Tim Sugden, and that's about as far apart as these cars have been all year long, to be perfectly honest, because all year long we've watched them. They've been first and second in class, and they've been nose to tail, and here we can see them, and that's one car disappearing around the corner, the other car in the background there just coming in, a couple of cars between them there.
Between the two of them, the Embassy racing car there, that is the Ben Collins and Neil Cunningham car, and now that is actually being shown, the two Group M cars are 14th and 15th, first and second in class. Neil Cunningham's car is being shown 17th, third in the GT2 class, but it looks as though he's actually a lap down on the Group M car. Now, we haven't seen an incident that would have caused that, which isn't necessarily a surprise, because we've been focusing so heavily on the huge battle out front as the number 3 Jaime Melo Ferrari tries to go around the outside of the Porsche. And there is Tim Sugden in the 88 car. They are definitely first and second in category, and the Embassy racing car is between them on the road, but behind them in the classification. So you have to assume that the Embassy racing car is going a lap down to the class leaders, and I have to say, at Silverstone, that will really disappoint them an awful lot.
Having said that, you know, when you're up against the might of the works Porsche team, which is what's behind the Group M cars, then I have to say that even being a lap down this early in the race isn't such a bad thing. They are still lying third in class. They're still looking for a podium position, and I have to say, for anybody else who's out there racing in the GT2 category at the moment, that is what you're racing for. You're racing to be third, because these two Group M cars throughout the season so far, the first two races, Monza and Magny-Cours, really have been so far ahead of the field, and they've been, as we said, nose to tail all the time. They were in Monza all the time, and they certainly have been in Magny-Cours. And this is, you know, 4 seconds is a world apart for these two cars. They're not normally that far apart, but you know, 4 seconds still isn't that far apart, and Tim Shipton, I'm sure, can pull that back before they have to come in for their fuel stops.
Well, it doesn't take too many balkings of Mike Rockenfeller to lose that time. I think that's probably the difference between them, is that Sugden has probably had worse brakes in traffic. I don't think he's that much slower than Rockenfeller, empirically, if at all. The cars, you've got to assume, are pretty much identical. Peter Cox there and David Brabham. Cox nearest the camera, Brab's on the far side. And Brabham saying in the press conference yesterday, great to be on pole for Aston Martin, and hoping to win a trophy that his father never did. Tourist Trophy, Sir Jack raced in many times in a whole variety of different cars. One of the few things that eluded him in a long and illustrious career, and of course a chance maybe to take the Tourist Trophy to the Brabham family or get the name on it with the 28 car.
And we see the 28 car there still flashing its lights as it's coming up, and even when it's a little distance behind, it's starting to flash lights to tell the car in front. And that's the Embassy Racing car now. It's coming up behind to say, look, you know, here I am, catching you at a pace. Please watch the mirrors, and I'll be coming past fairly soon, because right behind Aston Martin, as we see there in the picture, is Babini in the Maserati, so it's not far away. You can see the lights there flashing away at the Embassy Racing Porsche, just to let them know, and the lights on full time on Babini's car. And he will be trying to take any opportunity he can to stay with the Aston Martin as long as he can. So we are now 58 minutes into this race, and I have to say the pit window should be opening fairly soon.
Well, we've had a Graham Nash-Celine going into the pits as one of our first pit callers, but so far the leaders are all still out as Darren Turner completes another lap at the head of this race. Approaching the first hour mark in this centenary Tourist Trophy round 3 of the FIA GT Championship, and cars now starting to come in to make their first pit stops. In front of us in our commentary positions, the Phil Keen, Nigel Taylor, Mosler coming down pit road, looking for all the world like a mid-1980s Gephardt. Pedro Lamy you're looking at on screen, 4th position for the Portuguese, and sports car racing has really revived his career after dropping out of Formula One, being surplus to requirement. He spent a few years in the doldrums, but really came back with the Orica Viper team into the sports car racing fold. He's raced successfully in Europe and in the States, and we've got one of the Maseratis in. That's one of the 2 Red Bull cars. Camera's trying to pick him up, and I think that has got to be Carl Wendlinger.
No, it's Philip
the 16 car. Yes, you're right. Philip Pater is the first in. Now, they weren't particularly well placed, down in 9th position behind Wendlinger, but some 10, 11, 12 seconds behind Wendlinger they were, in fact, as they came in. This is our 3rd place car, the Corvette. Anthony Kumpen, one of 3 drivers, so there will have to be a driver change in the Corvette at each of their pit stops. And, of course, the other 2 drivers, Bert Longin and Mike Hasemans in the Dutch-Belgian driver lineup. Dutchman also waiting for the 29 car to come in, the second of the Aston Martins. That's Peter Cox, and an Aussie waiting to take over from Britain, Darren Turner, the lead car, as it certainly looks likely to be when it comes into the pits. But in the last half a lap, look how much closer car number 10 has got. Fabio Babini, I wonder if he's just got the inboard in his headset. Right, Fabio, come in next lap. Right, I'm going to be right up behind his chuff. As no, he won't be coming in this lap, because the well, not only the Russell Ace Racing Ferrari, but Wendlinger and Timo Scheider and Babini have all, not Babini, Golin have all come in the number 11 Ferrari as well. So that big battle which was for 5th, 6th, 7th and 8th, have all come in together, and tellingly, the Vitaphone Racing Maserati came in narrowly ahead of the Ferrari, so passed him on the in-lap into the pits, and there is the Vitaphone Racing number 10 car. That means number 9 will hound Darren Turner for number 10 rather will hound Darren Turner for another lap, and he's trying to go inside him and gets his nose nearly cut off in Luffield. He's coming into the pits. Okay, well, still trying to make an inside move into Luffield when you know you're coming into the pits, that could have caused a fairly major incident there. It could have put one or either of the cars in very hot water. I have to say I'm not quite sure I would have made a Luffield lunge there. That was a last lap move, and it's the last lap of his stint, but certainly not the last lap of the race.
And he was here at the other end of the pits already, the car number 9 already in there, and right behind them you can see a complete set of other people, and other mechanics and everything else, and the driver waiting to go in there. There's the car comes up, and first thing to do is plug on the fuel hose to try and refill the fuel, change the drivers over. You can see there they're changing the seats. What I said, the bit that they make that goes in to suit the actual driver itself, and the seat being changed. Drivers still changing themselves over. Once that's over, then they'll do the rest of it. Here we see one of the Astons in. We didn't see that actually coming in.
It's the 4th place car. Pedro Lami's helmet there you can see, and he is strapping in Peter Cox. We saw Cox and Brabham both ready, and just as well the Silverstone pit lane is long and wide and very much Formula 1 dimensions. In comes another of the in fact, out goes. I should recognise that, shouldn't I? Another of the Maseratis. Not sure whether that was 9 or 10. Can't remember which has got the camera. As in comes our race leader, being slowed as he comes into the pit lane, though. As you're watching that, Darren Turner, the race leader, coming down pit road very slowly behind one of the GPC Ferraris, and off dashes. Yet another completed pit stop, cleaning out a bit of muck from the nose of the number 10 car. Picked up a bit of grass. There's been a few grassy patches where cars have had incidents around the circuit. And there is Pedro Lami's car now with Peter Cox at the helm. We saw the driver change. We saw tyres ready. Didn't actually see whether they took them at ProDrive Aston Martin Racing or not. And unfortunately, the other Aston, the race leader, not being picked up by the director. The race leader is in the pits. Be great to see the number 28 Aston Martin. I know you're listening in our control truck, so let's have a look at the number 28 Aston Martin. Pretty sure that David Brabham will be taking the car back out. There it is. And they are taking tyres, so whether they did or not on 29 we didn't quite see. We do see them taking tyres, a lightly scrubbed set on the 28 car. So David Brabham now at the helm, and this is for the race lead. Don't forget, barely ahead of the number 10 car, the Maserati that's now being driven by Thomas Biaggi. Current race leader is Anthony Kumpen in the Corvette, and he has shoes coming into the pits yet again as he romps around in the lead. And there is the Peter Cox Aston coming out of Luffield now, and coming at speed across the line. What we need to see is where the 28 car is, because David Brabham might lose a position to the sister car. I can't believe that Brabs will still be stationary, but he's got to come out of the pit road and onto the pit apron and along here. Now, I can't see him, David, but
he's already out there. No, he did leave the pits just before we went to the what was the 4th place car before the pit stops happened. And then we see the engineers all inside looking at the tyres to try and decide how much wear there has been on the tyres and what condition they're in. And then we see the lead car now out there. That's the number 6 car. It hasn't come in yet. It's still out there. It hasn't stopped for its first fuel stop. And Anthony Kumpen staying out as long as possible to try and get the best out of that car and get, while everybody else is in and slowing down and speeding up and everything else, he's out there trying to rack the laps up and put in some good lap times.
And Brabs, of course, on a fresh set of tyres, not quite up to speed, not quite up to temperature yet. Very happy to hold the Corvette up on its last flying lap, perhaps, before it goes into the pits, because if he slows the Corvette down, there's every chance it'll be less of a rival later on in the race.
And we can see, you know, Kumpen's still going round, but even although the Corvette caught right up to the back of the Aston, all of a sudden in that half lap, when David Brabham's got his tyres now working temperature, he's stretching himself away already from the Corvette. So David now already into his stride. And that's one of the big differences that Aston Martin have with their race team, is that they've got 4 professional drivers in there, and the majority of the teams around here, the drivers bring along a deal, some money, something. They bring something to the team to make it all work. Now the drivers that Aston Martin have got, they only bring an ability along. They have that ability, the racing ability. They're all fantastic racing people who've won many races in the past, all the drivers here at Aston Martin, and they're out there to try and win. And Dave Richards said one of the big things that he has in his favour for the Aston Martin racing team is his drivers. He knows he's got 4 drivers, all very capable, all very fit, all very young, able to go out there and run at full pace for the whole time they're out there. And we think that now the Astons have changed their drivers. They've only got 2 drivers. They've changed the drivers on the first pit stop. Those 2 drivers, Peter Cox in one car and David Bramble in the other, will now stay in all the way through to the end. We're not sure whether they'll take tyres on the second stop, but certainly drivers will stay in now until the end.
I think partly that might be decided by what the racing is looking like in an hour from now. Talk about this car on its Pirelli tyres, running a new construction Pirelli compound here this weekend. Peter Tyson, who is the Senior Vice President in charge of marketing for the United States and North and South America for Pirelli tyres, very much the driving force behind their competition programme. He's here with a big group of American journalists this weekend at Silverstone, and the brand new construction being run on this car as a test for the Pratt & Miller factory cars for Le Mans. This is the construction of Pirelli. They are anticipating running on the GM Goodwrench factory Corvettes at Le Mans, and so this is their baptism of fire, if you like. And I have to say, so far, with Anthony Kumpen at the helm, they have had a very good, strong-looking run as well. It would be great, I have to say. It just would have been so fantastic to have got the 2 factory cars over here. Can you imagine that with Ronnie and Johnny and Ollie and Olivier? They would have really put the cat among the pigeons with the Maseratis and the Aston Martin as well. At the moment then, the race leader, as he still is, at the standstill, but Longin is getting into the number 6 car. But on the left-hand side of your picture, 28, that's David Brabham, the car that was in the race lead when it came into the pits, and tellingly, right behind it on the road, the 29 car, 7 seconds back, is now in 3rd place and about to become 2nd as the Aston Martins stream across the line. Brabham is now the race leader as he goes in front.
And we see the Corvette leaving there, and that looked like a very good pit stop for the Corvette in actual fact. And a lot of time can be made and lost in these pit stops. We were talking earlier about how you want to spend the least amount of time in the pits. A lot of these teams were out there last night till quite late at night doing practice pit stops, just pushing the car forward, stopping, putting the fuel on and seeing how long the fuel hose would go, coming off of the fuel hose, then having the mechanics run out from the pit garage because they're going to stay behind the red line until the refueling's finished, and then out to do the tyre change one tyre, change the other tyre. You've got 1 mechanic for each side of the car, and that's going to be practice. Which is the best way? Is it best to do the back before the front or the front before the back? And various other bits and pieces. So there's lots of things that you can do to try and make that time spent in the pit as little as possible. And looking at this, I would have to say the Aston Martins have done an excellent job of doing that, and it looks as though he could have leaped Peter Cox just up that little bit.
Ahead of Biaggi in the number 10 car, the first of the Vitaphone racing cars, and then in 5th place is car number 11, the Labra competition Ferrari. Gabriele Gardel and Fabrizio Golin have swapped places. Gardel now at the helm of that red and white machine. And then there is the number 17 car, Nikolai Fomenko now at the helm of the Russian Age racing car. So it now goes from being a front runner to being a tail ender. Peter Cox with the lights on, being balked there as he goes into the corner. Here comes Bert Longin in the Chevy Corvette, and that car is now in 3rd place. So it was a good stop for the Corvette, and it was a very good stop for the 29 Aston Martin. And we saw that the 28 car took tyres. I think to leapfrog up there, they probably put Peter Cox in and filled the tank and said, get going.
That's a possibility. We didn't see what they actually did in the pit stop, so we're not sure. Maybe if our young lady down in the pits can wander along to Aston Martin and find out exactly what their strategy is. If they're running 2 different strategies, the 2 cars, one takes tyres, one doesn't, in order to get them up into 1st and 2nd, certainly for this middle part of the race between the 1st and 2nd hours. And then we'll see what happens at the end of the 2nd hour, what they decide to do before they get to the end.
Yeah, my bet would be that the 29 car has leaped up a couple of positions through the pit stops by not having those tyres, which means, of course, that they are potentially going to drop down in the final pit stop, because they will probably need to do fresh rubber. I don't think they want to triple stint their tyres. But be that as it may, it is Aston Martin now first and second, as they were in qualifying. 28 leading 29, David Brabham, Peter Cox. Third, Bert Longchamp in the Corvette. Fourth, Thomas Biaggi in the number 10 car. That is the Vitaphone Racing Maserati. Fifth place, Gabriele Gardel in the Labra competition, Ferrari 550 Maranello. In sixth position, I've been calling it a 575. I really do need my head examining again. It's a 550, car number 11. Sixth place, Michel Bartels in car number 9, the second of the Vitaphone Racing Maseratis, and that car is still leading. Carl Wendlinger in 15 and Chris Buncombe in 16. Those two Red Bull cars could not get by it in the pit stop, so I'm assuming they all took tyres, or all didn't take tyres, because there doesn't seem to be much between them at all. That three-way battle for sixth place continues, and they are still stuck behind Ferrari number 11, but at the moment they're not quite so close. So Aston Martin leading with 52 laps gone and into the second hour at Silverstone. Eurosport live at Silverstone. This is the Centenary Tourist Trophy. We ride on board car number 9, and that has been driven by Michel Bartels, chasing Gabriele Gardel in the 550 repeat Martin, and right out 100 times Ferrari Maranello, run by Jacques Lecon's Labra competition team. And this battle has been going on all the way through the race. 11, 9, 15 and 16. The Ferrari leading the Maseratis, and still doing so as another of the GPC cars comes in. This is number 3 car. It's been a little bit trouble, this car. Wasn't particularly going well for Jaime Melo, and it's going even less well, clearly, for Jean-Philippe Veloc, who took it over at the stint and is now finding himself reversed into the cool of the garage. Race being led by David Brabham and by Peter Cox, and I will take my brain out of neutral and thank John Heinhoff mightily for his information and for his corrections. The Corvette is being run by Car Sport on a brand new Pirelli compound. That will be run at Le Mans, but not Doofus Martin by the Pratt & Miller Corvettes, because they don't run on Pirellis, never have done. They ran initially on Goodyears and now on Michelins, so they won't be running on Pirellis. The Pirelli tyre in question will be being run by the Penos Esperanti. Hey, thank you. So Heinhoff clearly listening to us down in the Chevrolet hospitality. I hope they're hospitalising you nicely there, John. And we will hopefully be seeing some more of the GM products faring well in the World Touring Car Championship coming up later this afternoon, live on Eurosport International and British Eurosport. That's running from 2 till 4 British summertime, from 1500 to 1700 in in Central European time. So David Brabham, Peter Cox leading now into the second hour of this Centenary Tourist Trophy, and we're fast approaching the time that we'll be leaving this live broadcast on Eurosport 2, but come back and join us before the start of the World Touring Cars, because we will have the final parts of the race coming up then. Now, unscheduled pit stop coming up. This is car number 15, Carl Wendlinger, coming into the pits. In fact, it's not, it's car 16, Chris Buncombe. So this is an unscheduled pit stop. They have already made their fuel stop at the end of the first hour. Philip Hayter started the car, handed over to Chris Buncombe, and we're seeing car number 3 in the garage. I think we're going to see car number 16 in the garage as well. Ooh, did you see a penalty board for him there?
I don't know. When he was driving through,
penalty, speeding in the pit lane.
It didn't look as though he'd stopped, so he was a drive-through penalty. It wasn't a pit stop as such. It was just had to come in. Obviously got caught for speeding. Was got too excited when he got into the car and left the pits. They were in the very first garage.
Might not have been him. Could have been speeding on the way in.
Could have been speeding on the way in.
Could have been speeding on the way in.
The distance on the way in from where the pit limit starts, and also the for the speed trap is very short distance to where the Red Bull pit is, but a long way from the garage all the way to the end of the pit lane. So one of the two, either the way in or the way out. Probably I would have thought on the way out. Once you get into the car and you get going and really excited, maybe you forgot to press that little button that keeps the speed limiter on, and the engine constants pluses once you get to 59 kilometers an hour, just to keep you below that 60 that you want to be at in actual fact before you get caught for speeding. Whatever happened, he's been caught, he's taken his penalty, he's had his drive through, so that not very good for Chris Buncombe. Whether it was his fault or not, we're not sure, but anyway, he's had the drive through penalty and now moved on to carry on with the race. a little bit further down than what he was before, but down in 9th place at this moment in time we see him.
So David Brown-Pidcock's leading. You can see a bit of animated discussion there going on. I haven't seen him move quite so much in a while there. It was Captain Grumpy having a bit of a chat with the team.
And we see here the Astons out in the lead. Peter Cox with the in the 2nd place car, trying to get as much time as possible through all the overtaking lap in the Embassy Racing Porsche GT3 there. And as he laps yet again in the lead car here with David Brabham coming out of Luffield, using all of the road and a little bit of the curb and some of that grass as the exit out of Luffield, trying to get as quick an exit as possible to come along past the start and finish here and down towards the first corner. Copse, very quick corner now, Copse, as you go through here with a very wide exit as you come out, a little bit of curb on the outside, a bit of grass and a very large tarmac area. The other side of that grass, should anyone err over there and make a mistake, up to a very tricky part of the circuit here, going through initially Maggots and then Beckett's, where you're braking and turning right through Island Bend, which is the left-hander there as you come out of there, and a nice little run down to the Abbey hairpin down here, which is a very tight hairpin down to first gear, I would think, in these cars, coming out, keeping off that curb on the left-hand side, very high curb, does suspension no good whatsoever, and does slow you down as you're accelerating out to there. Up and over the hill, down into Bridge Corner, nice camber through this corner. You can really go through there with a lot of pace, slowing the car down 1 gear before you go through Priory. The first left-hander with a short acceleration before turning sharp left through this Brooklands corner here, and then into the long right-hander, which is Luffield. Some people call it Luffield in and out, some people call it Luffield 1 and 2. And some people just simply call it Luffield as you accelerate out through Woodcourt Corner and start another lap. And that's taking him at this moment in time 19.5 seconds to do that lap that we've just watched.
1 minute 19.
1 minute 19, yes, sorry, not 19 seconds. 1 minute 19.5 seconds to get round there. They've all settled themselves down into a reasonable time. They're also running around the 1:19, 1:20 mark at this moment in time. Fastest lap of the race was set very early on, around about 1:17s. 1:17 and a half, 3 people in around that area at the very beginning of the race, but now they sort of settled down to saying, you know, this is an endurance event, we want to run fast and we want to run consistently, and there's only a couple of seconds between the very fastest lap and the laps they're doing now, where they're having to overtake laps constantly, every lap, cars constantly, on every lap that they do, they have to overtake at least one car, if not more.
Now take a look at the difference between the Maserati that you're seeing there and the Corvette right in front of it, and for that matter the Aston Martin and partly the Celine as well, particularly in the rear wing area. Look at the Maserati's rear wing compared to the width of the car. It's quite a lot narrower than the bodywork. The Corvette goes almost to the full extremes of the bodywork. The Ferrari 550 and the Aston Martin go right out to the edge of the bodywork. And we've seen that the FIA have played with the aerodynamic package, and particularly the rear wing, as a very easy way of playing with the aerodynamic package to try and rein in the expected performance of the Maserati, particularly with regards to the rest of the field. The Maserati is seen very much as a purpose-built racing car that they happen to have built road versions of, whereas the Aston Martin is a production road car, the Corvette is a production road car, the Ferrari 550 is a production road car, which has been converted into a racing car. And as a result, the purebred racing cars are given less wing to play with at the back, which means that you can't run so much downforce at the front, because obviously it'll unbalance the car. Now, one of the other things is that the Celine, David, has recently had a restriction or a narrowing of its rear wing, and the Lamborghini has had a widening of its rear wing, so the Lamborghini is in fact even wider than the body itself as part of the balance. But that's sort of had a bit of a knock-on effect, because one of the American teams, Semco, that have been racing the Celine in the American Le Mans series for the last 3 or 4 years, quite happily in one spec, are now being suddenly told that if you want to race at Le Mans, you've got to run with a sort of 20 or 30% narrower wing. And as a result, they said, well, you know, hang on, you homologated this car. You can't now tell us that what you said last year was wrong and what you're saying this year is right. And as a result, they've decided that, in fact, it's not worth their while going to Le Mans because they won't be competitive. Yeah,
that's right. That was their decision. They've looked at it, and that's what they've decided. Different people do different things. The Conrad Motorsport team, who are not here this weekend, they're a big miss on the grid this weekend. They've always been here for quite a long time now. and they run a pair of Saleen SR7s. And we were talking to their engineer yesterday, and he said that they've been able to work with various parts of the body and aerodynamics and such like within the rules and regulations, and they've managed to claw back that downforce that's been lost because of the narrowing of the rear wing on the Saleen. So they were quite happy that they can get their car to run well. Unfortunately, they've had a few engine problems. They changed their engine builder over the winter, and that's thrown up a few problems beginning of this year, and they got through rather a lot of engines at the very beginning. So they are taking a bit of a slip there by the Corvette, and allowing the Maserati to go past. So a change there for third and fourth place on the actual circuit itself. But going back to what we were saying about the Saleen, Conrad having had these engine problems, he decided to take this weekend off and try and regroup as a race team, and they will be back out at the next race meeting with their car with another engine back in. I think they're I'm not sure whether having the same engine or maybe an engine from last year's engine builder back into the car for the next race meeting, but they'll be back with their Saleen SR7, and we'll see whether they have actually got all their downforce back, and they'll be trying to be back at the front of this grid, because we see the Saleens that are running here today really are nowhere. It didn't help the fastest of the Saleens had to start out of the pit lane with Paolo Roberti. He did get going, was going quite well to start with, got himself up to about 12th place, but they've had an extra stop. We'll see with the sister car, the number 8 car, so they're struggling at this moment in time with those two Graham Nash Saleens, so not doing as well as they could. But here the Vitafor Maseratis, the Maseratis definitely been trying to curtail their speed with both a restrictor, the size of their aperture that the air comes into the engine has been reduced, and the rear wing being reduced to try and slow them down a little bit. But even with those restrictions put on during the winter period, when it come to the first race, they were nearly there, didn't quite win, the Ferrari did, but we put that down to the fact that Ferrari was on Michelin tyres and the rest were on Pirellis, and they were very strong at the end of the race. That was our take on what was actually happening there. And oh dear, Bert Longin really isn't having a very good time at this moment with this Corvette. So he picked the car up. It was in third place when he set off, and he made a mistake and let the Maserati pass. Now he's had a spin and dropped even more time. So
now I wonder whether he's maybe picked up a slow puncture or something, because the one at Ireland, or turning out of Beckett's rather, into Island Bends, that's quite a common place to just outbrake yourself. I have to say Abbey is as well, but 2 in consecutive laps, he's either completely lost the rhythm and needs to really get his head around it, or he might be labouring with a slight problem. He might have a brake problem, possibly, he might have a tyre problem, or he might just have well, okay, I don't think he's going into the pits for more talent. So, so I think we might find that maybe his brake pedal is starting to travel a lot further than he expects it to before suddenly grabbing on. That's quite often what will happen if you have a problem with the brakes. Your foot goes all the way to the floor, and then suddenly the whole thing grabs.
It's a great pity to see this car in, having gone so well out there to start with.
Puncture for Joel Kamatias in the number 7 Saleen that you were just talking about. I thought I was the cursing commentator. I didn't think it was the curse of the expert analyst. That's not a phrase that we hear very often, but he has picked up something, so maybe there is a little bit of debris there. Well, it certainly is now, because he's dropped a bit, and it doesn't look like he's broken the rim, but he's certainly halfway round from Island Bends, having to go back to the pits, and they are changing tyres on the car, so I wonder maybe whether he had picked up just a slow puncture.
They're not very sure exactly what they're doing. They're having a bit of a discussion on various bits and pieces, and you can see the marshal here saying how many people are working on this car. There's only supposed to be 4 people working on it, so he'll be keeping an eye on that, making notes, and if something's wrong, he'll send a note off to the race director. The race director will then impose a penalty, whatever that might be. It could be a drive-through penalty or something else. But it looks as though they're struggling to work out what's wrong. They're not rushing at this. They're not going out there suddenly changing tyres, suddenly doing various bits and pieces. They seem to be taking a little bit of time, longer than what was necessary to get the job sorted. He's getting going, a bit of a stall on the way out, but on the very last pit garage at the end of the pit, so he can accelerate quickly out of the pit lane. Back onto the circuit, hopefully now we can carry on. They've found a slow puncture or whatever you were talking about, Martin, as a possibility in order to sort this car out, but unfortunately he'll have lost the best part of a lap in doing that.
And most importantly, with it has gone third place. Coming up behind him is the number 16 car, similarly delayed, that Maserati, with a drive-through penalty. Chris Buncombe back at the helm. He was shown as in 9th place on the previous lap, so he'll be up to 8th. and Bert Longin will be down to 9th from 3rd place. So it's Brabham and Cox, 1st and 2nd. For Aston Martin, there is David Brabham leading the race by 6 seconds from his teammate Thomas Biaggi, 3rd for Maserati, 4th Gabriele Gardel in the ProDrive Ferrari 550 run by Labra Competition. So ProDrive cars 1, 2 and 4 at the moment, with the Maseratis giving chase. For those who've been watching rather more than feeding their face, i.e. not Giant Hindhoff, the GT2 cars are still running round. Mark Lieb now ahead of Tim Sugden. After Lieb took over from Rockenfeller, Sugden stays in, and Manu Collard will run the 88 car in the final stint. 3rd in the GT2 category is Johnny Kane in the LMT Team TBR 400, and Jamie Derbyshire leads the G2 class in the Sean Balfe Racing Mosler MT900R. We'll be back towards the 2 o'clock mark on Eurosport 2 with the finish of the race. Join us for that, and join us an international at 2 for the World Touring Cars. Bye for now. Third race in the FIA GT Championship. Contact again between the two Maseratis. Vitaphone car and a Red Bull car, mirroring the action at the same corner at Abbey that happened with the 2 earlier drivers in the cars. Well, again, no damage seems to be done. The big slab-sided flanks of the Maserati seemingly taking the brunt of it. This time the number 15 car not getting too far over the curbs as Carl Wendlinger had to do. But still, 2 into 1 in Abbey, always very tough, particularly with such big cars. Well, Andrea Bertolini in the number 15 car in 5th place. Of course, one last time out. It's going to be very hard indeed for them to manage to repeat that performance here. 82 laps into the race at that stage, and there's Thomas Biaggi watching proceedings. Andrea Bertolini rushing over the start-finish line in 4th place. At this moment, Aston Martin's 1st and 2nd. And there is the number 15 car. Thomas Biaggi's number 10 car, the Vitaphone Racing car, in 3rd place, right behind Peter Cox. This is the number 15 car, diving down inside Gabriele Gardel for 4th place. And no contact there. Great classic overtaking manoeuvre at Abbey. Little big wing mirrors on the Aston Martin. Not only are they very rigidly mounted so the drivers can actually see what's behind them, and in this case, hello, it's a big blue car, a lapped big blue car in this case, the number 15 car. But they also have air holes in the front of the mirror, ducts the air down the tube that the mirror's supported on and into the car. That's where the fresh air gets in, or relatively fresh air, to help keep the driver cool. 28 car with Darren Turner at the helm, flashing away furiously at the Russian Age Racing Ferrari to get out the way. Fabio Babini in 3rd place in his Maserati MC10. Pryor and Brooklands, the 2 left-handers, and then the long right at Luffield, running out wide, just chasing the throttle in his attempts to catch up with the 2 Aston Martins and using the grass on the exit of Luffield. Wide out through Stowe, then a quick left at Maggots, bouncing over the braking, turning all the way down into 2nd gear for the island bends. Big curbs there as well, don't ride them too much as you go right and then kink left. And this is annoying, no question, for the race leader. The number 15 car is not on the lead lap, but is trying to get back on it and is being a real annoyance. Andrea Bertolini. Of course, it's his duty to try and go as fast as he possibly can in the car. He's never going to win races if he doesn't try to. But very tricky for the race leader to try and judge this one. You can see how the Aston and the Maserati at that moment pretty well matched for pace. And here comes the 2nd Aston down the inside. Peter Cox getting by past Vasiliev and Fomenko's car. Boucher has done the opening stint and he's done for the day. The 2 Russian drivers will share it for the rest of the afternoon. So Darren Turner, Pedro Lamy, 2.9 seconds apart. Aston Martin running first and second. And the orange highlights on the 29 car, the second-placed machine. You can see the sister car up ahead, and those very bright lamps being used in the bright sunshine at Silverstone to give advance warning. Hello, hello, watch your mirrors, please. The Vonka Racing Porsche in front, one of the GT2 class cars. And the Aston Martin drivers weren't worried too much about the reliability of the car. If you finish in Sebring, then you pretty much are going to finish a 3-hour race at Silverstone unless something bizarre happens. They thought they had Maserati taped in terms of speed. They didn't think they were going to be left behind by Maserati. They thought they had everything that they needed to take the game to Maserati, and so it's proved. The real question mark for the Aston Martin drivers hanging over their heads was, who on earth are all these other people in all these other cars, and who can we trust and who can't we trust? And that is the problem, perhaps, for first and foremost, as the race progresses, as the offline parts of the track get dirtier and dirtier with more and more rubber and gravel and grit and grass on them. The Aston Martins have to take more chances, or as many chances in traffic as the other front runners, but they are perhaps less educated in their guesses as to which cars will be safe to pass and which cars need more circumspection and less haste. So the first two on the road with a Maserati between them, but still very much within sight of each other. And Pedro Lamy lapping quicker now than Darren Turner. Lead drivers, or the starting drivers, back in the cars now in the closing stages of this 3-hour race. 1.06 seconds across the line. And as Turner comes up behind the number 16 Maserati, wasting no time, and nor is Carl Wendlinger. The 15 car slots through the inside as well. Lap 108, Darren Turner, Pedro Lamy. It was 1.0, it's now basically 0.0 seconds. Lamy has caught Turner, and is this gamesmanship? Is this staging a last half-hour Aston 1-2 race? Or is Pedro Lamy really going to put in a passing manoeuvre on Darren Turner? He's showed him the nose a couple of times. He's had a good look. He's been well out of the slipstream, filling the mirrors, and again he has a look. And was that contact? Looked as though Darren Turner's car had a weave. Was it as the nose of Lamy swiped across the back end? Well, all the undertrace, the splitters, the diffusers at the back are still attached. Or was it that Pedro Lamy is catching because Darren Turner's car's got a problem? GT2 battle. Race leader is Mike Rockenfeller. Ben Collins, second in Embassy Racing car in their Porsche. And third, Lawrence Tomlinson in his own TVR, driven by Johnny Kane as well. And Lawrence only has one car here, but by goodness, he's going to get himself an FIA GT podium at this rate. 66 car with a water pump problem. It's not very often that you have a problem with a factory-built Porsche. They do occasionally rear their ugly head, so the joint championship lead, well, it was always going to be broken in somebody's favour in race 3. You can't have a tie after 3 races, I don't think, unless all 4 drivers have won as many races as each other. So Sugden and Collard will now drop down the order, and in fact out of the points as a result of that mechanical failure, out of their hands. Car repaired and back out on track, but that time lost in the pits is unmakeable uppable. And in front of them the Spirit Kia, or the Spirit Kia Mosler. There is the second place car then, Ben Collins, sharing that with Kiwi Neil Cunningham, the Embassy Racing Porsche. So Porsche's first and second, and TVR third. And that has got to be a first, I think, in the FIA GT Championship. Lap 120, close to the end of the 3-hour race. This Centenary Tourist Trophy looks certain to have an Aston Martin as the race winner. But again, Darren Turner, did you see the brake lights flashing on and on? That had the looks to me of a man who's pumping the middle pedal. Very definitely. Race drivers of Turner's caliber do not have a second go at braking in a 3-hour race. They just don't, and the brake lights were definitely on and off. I think Darren Turner's problem is that he has got a lengthening brake pedal. I think he had to have a little pump there going into Brooklands. And that means that Pedro Lamy, with a healthy Aston Martin, may well take the lead. And he has a look, oh goodness! And he saw that Darren was not going to wave him by there, and he stood on the middle pedal with everything he possessed to avoid the accident, and avoid it he did. Wendlinger, though, is right there, still a lap down, Carl Wendlinger's blue Maserati, and again at Abbey. Boys, 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 for goodness sake, at least one of you win the race. Nervous faces. In the grey jumper, Dave Richards, he's taken off the Aston jacket, too warm for that. They're going to have to do something. Go on, give him the board, give him the board. Right, there's going to be a message going out on the pit board. Dave Richards said, right, get it sorted before we have both cars off. And that is George Howard Chappell. That is God's right hand there, holding out the pit board. This is not the sort of order that will be disobeyed. What is it going to say? And why on a pit board? Why not on the radio? 28, 2, slow, it says. Well, 28 is not P2. So there is the order. 28, go to P2. Was it slow? Something like that at the bottom. And that was being pointed out very graphically to Darren Turner, and Pedro Lamy takes the lead on the run through Maggots down into Beckett's. Well, that was straightforwardly enough done, wasn't it? Pedro Lamy will probably now start to vanish. Let's have a look. Pedro Lamy pulling away. Last lap at Silverstone. The Centenary Tourist Trophy, one of motor racing's oldest and most historic events, will be won by Aston Martin. With his back to us, Dave Richards in the headset there with the aerial on. George Howard Chappell, David Brabham there on the pit wall, disappointed that whatever has befallen his car, and it looks to all the world like a braking problem. They will not win the race, and the sister car will, but it'll be a win for Aston Martin. Further back, though, a good battle going on for the non-Aston Martin places, if we can put it that. Third place down, and the Astons, well, doesn't look like they're going to be in the blanket photo finish at the end of the race. Pedro Lamy pulling away from Darren Turner. Turner still with Carl Wendlinger hounding him from behind. Coming up behind the middle of the three Moslers, Barry and Phil White and Gavin Kershaw's car. And safely past him. Out of Luffield for the final time then. Checkered flag awaits. And history is made. The Centenary Tourist Trophy won by Aston Martin, and Aston Martin take second place as well. So for the Banbury concern, and for Aston Martin Racing, for ProDrive and Aston Martin Racing, 2 wins and 2 historic victories. The 12 Hours of Sebring and the Tourist Trophy. What next? Le Mans 24 Hours? Seems like there's every chance. And the GT2 winner, Rocky and Mike. Mike Rockenfeller and Mark Lee. Rocky and Mark. Rocky and Bullwinkle. Oh, best not mention that to Mark. Peter Cox there, giving and receiving congratulations for George Howard Chappell. And the beaming face of Dave Richards there. A very, very happy man as Aston take a 1-2.
Well, no, this is our development year. We're just testing the cars this year. Next trip is to Le Mans, but what a way to go to Le Mans after a 1-2 for the TT here in our home crowd at Silverstone.
Do you think it was quite easy for both cars to be up there?
It wasn't easy at all, and you know, if you look at the times, the performance on the track was very similar. All the drivers did a great job, but remember the pit crew, because the pit crew at the end of the day made the difference, I think.
Thank you, Peter Cox. Well, a podium finishes for both cars, but did you actually think you'd take home the victory?
Well, you always hope, but thinking is a different thing. But I also want to emphasize that the whole Aston Martin racing team did a fantastic job on the pit stop, but that gave us really the edge. And for the rest, we had to keep it constant. And the Aston Martin already has proved its reliability in winning Sebring 12 hours. So I think it's a fantastic result for everybody. I'm really happy.
So Aston Martin with a 1-2 in the Tourist Trophy. David Brown will be looking down with a big smile, and so too Victor Gauntlet, another man who's passion for motorsport and for Aston Martin, rescued the company, both of men, in times of dire straits, and took the motor racing. And again now, under the management of Ford, Aston Martin returns to motor racing, to sports car racing that it has done so well in the past. So behind them, of course, Maseratis and the Ferraris, the regular championship contenders. Maserati taking the top 3 point scoring positions. Neil Cunningham, Ben Collins, Lawrence Kane, Johnny Kane and Lawrence Tomlinson taking second and third in GT2 behind the GT2 winners. And look at that, 3 Maserati teams tied at the top. Bartel Scheider, Bertolini Wendlinger, and the second of the Vitaphone cars, Fabio Babini and Thomas Biaggi, all tied for the lead. Gabriele Gardel on his own as a result of having different teammates so far this year. Vitaphone and JMB, not much to choose between them, with Vitaphone's slight points advantage, 12 points in it, not an awful lot. But look at Labra as well. First year with the 550 Ferraris. Jacques Lecomte knows a thing or two about racing in endurance. Lieb and Rockenfeller then take a standalone advantage over Collard and Sugden. Tomlinson and Kane now third in the points, ahead of Collins and Cunningham, after strong results from those cars. 2 of the 3 races so far. Gruppa M lead, Scuderia at Kos, who didn't race here at Silverstone, now tied in second by another British team, Team LMT. So 3 British teams heading the GT2 category. But for the Aston Martin drivers, a 1-2 result. 2 happy, 2 ecstatic. And that was the Centenary Tourist Trophy from Silverstone, round 3 of the FIA GT Championship.